Alrighty, so now is not the time for complacency. Um, you know, it's not the time to start backing down um, and returning into this new normal, as they keep calling it. Um, that's basically those basics of what I want to express, and I'm only going to do a short video for this because I don't feel it really needs, to be an in-depth thing that takes forever to get through. Oh, that light's going to be annoying, isn't it? Oh, bring this closer. All right, so um, let's not get complacent. What we're seeing now, we're seeing our own government here in Australia starting to back off mandates a bit. They're starting to relax the rules. Increasing density limits in different venues, and removing the QR coding, like the contact tracing QR signing in process in certain venues and certain settings in certain workplaces. Um, and slowly, the vaccine mandates are also backing off, being uh, it's a backpedal. They're being sort of not released. What's the word? Lifted. Let's just say lifted. So some of these vaccine mandates are being lifted now. The unvaccinated can travel on planes and that sort of thing. There's talk of the mask mandates being removed in certain settings, or at least laxed off again. But we've been through this before, and there's always a laxing of rules, sort of before another big thing, big outbreak. Something else has to happen now for them to maintain their level of control that they've seized. This authoritarian or totalitarian regime that we're seeing doesn't end with COVID. It doesn't end with the COVID mandates. So, basically what these institutions, these people that have committed such systemic injustice against the people, this oligarchy that runs the world, these elites, what they always do is they'll push, push, and push. And they'll push an agenda so far as they feel they can. And they'll push as far as close to breaking point before backing off. Because once they realize, if too many people start to get frustrated and angry, and of course we've seen, talk of the booster shot mandates coming out, and then, as soon as there was talk of mandating booster shots, especially here in Victoria at least, we had Premier Dan Andrews come out and say that one of the reports of booster shot mandates coming out was actually a false report, that it was a mistake. So we're seeing a lot of backpedal because the response to booster shot mandates was not what they were hoping for. So they were not hoping that, what they were hoping is that, while people had already got the two, they wouldn't make much of a fuss about having the third shot. And of course, well, no, people didn't want the first two, but a lot of people agreed to it and just gave in and said, well, we'll get it if it means that, that's it. And then introduce a booster shot mandate, and then tell people that every 6 months or so they're going to have a booster shot. That's to be classified as fully vaccinated. Of course, that is of course going to spark an uproar. So they'll back off. They do this with everything. They'll scare, scare, scare. They'll push, push, push. And, once the water starts to boil, they back off. And every time that happens, of course they know this because they're observant. They know how to manipulate people and how they, so, angers rise, they back off. We start to get some of these freedoms back. Don't forget, they use these freedoms as our chains. They are our shackles. This idea of a capitalist and consumerist society that we live in, the way the world is designed is so that these things, these distractions for us, keep us from asking the real questions, keep us from pushing for true freedom and true justice in the world, keep us from pushing to be better, to improve. Um, because if we all realize that we can improve and can do better and can have a better form of society, and a certainly better governance of that society, um, that all falls apart for them. Their whole system of control absolutely crumbles. So, of course, they don't want that. So they'll back off, give us this false sense of security. Once we're lulled again into a false sense of security, once we're back to being comfortable, and look, it could be a matter of months, it could be years, it could be weeks, whatever they decide to do, and however long they decide to let us fall back into our old patterns of ignoring the corruption, of allowing these same politicians to stay in power and these same people to rule and govern our country, and all the while keeping their authoritarian stance and keeping their level of power and control, introducing new legislation and all these sorts of things, and um, they'll let us have this false sense of security for a little while, and then they'll slam us with something else. Next, I think, genuinely think soon it will be that the idea of World War III, and they'll give us the Russians as the enemy, and the Chinese, no doubt, will be tied into that as well. There'll be an agenda there, and we'll see. Look, I mean, I genuinely worry that if we go into World War III, that um, given these pandemic powers and these state of emergency powers, this their capacity to make new legislation, I wonder if they won't try to mandate or at least conscript people into. Oh, cool. I'll have to send her a message. My partner's just going to bed. Awesome. Love you lots. Go say love you lots. Yeah, so we don't want to fall into that trap because that's what it is. They've done it over and over again. It happened with the whole, that the whole terrorist play that they had going on for a long time there. It is this big song and dance show. Give us an enemy that we can be afraid of, and then once that fizzles out, you know, lull us into a false sense of security, then bring another enemy out. They always have to have an enemy for us to focus on, because as long as we have this objective, um, this objective enemy that we can see, that we can focus our attention on, then we're not focusing our attention on our real enemy, which is the very people that we have in control of our countries. And they continue to give us the illusion of the left and the right, um, you know, the black, the white, the red, the blue, and what we've really got is just one very corrupt world order ran by psychopaths, pedophiles, and genocidal maniacs. We allow it. I mean, we condone it because we allow them to stay in power, because we lose our focus and don't continue our fight. That happens all too often. So, once the mandates sort of slow down, once we can get back to this idea of this concept of normal, which is completely unnatural and abnormal, in my opinion, the way that we live our lives in this world. That whole 5-day working week, the driving cars, this whole thing blows my mind when I really think about it. We're so out of touch with the natural order of things. Um, just, yeah, it blows my mind. But we have to keep fighting. So we can't just fall into that false sense of security. We can't give up. And, you know, the protests will end inevitably once things seemingly get back to normal, because most of the people who are involved in the protests are not fighting for a better world. They're fighting for what they had pre-COVID, and then that's all they want. They just want what they had before. So really, what they want is they're asking to return to their chains, to return to their state of slavery, to return to their state of unconsciousness. But we want better than that. We need better than that. So we need to fight for better than that. That's my real message here tonight: is keep fighting for better, keep pushing for better, and once COVID ends, you know, don't ease up. We need to keep the boot on our governments, and we need to hold them accountable for everything they've done pre-COVID, during COVID, and what they will do in the future if we allow them to. We need to hold ourselves to account for that, but we also need to hold them to account. And these criminals, because that's all that they are, that's all that I can see them as. People like Dan Andrews, our Prime Minister, the American President, all these health professionals and experts, our chief health officers, all these people really need to be held to account, to the extreme extent of what should be the people's law. We have to hold them to account for that, and for all the injustice that they have committed against their own people, and will continue to commit long into the future if we allow them to continue. So be careful what you condone, know what's morally right, do what's morally right, and continue the good fight. If you happen to see this, great. If you want to spread this to others, if you want to teach this sort of stuff to others, just do it. Just speak your mind. Um, yeah, I look. That's all I can say for now. Take care. Peace.